All right. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for being here. Before we start, I do want to apologize. We did have a cancellation. Obviously, as you know, this gentleman to my left is not Bob Huggins. But I'm going to tell you something. You're going to like him better. I'm telling you right now. You're going to like him better. He's a super guy. I've had a chance to meet him a couple times now, and I'm excited that Rocco's here. So, on behalf of the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the Board of Directors of the Pro Football Hall of Fame Luncheon Club, I'd like to call to order the 33rd meeting of our 61st year of the Pro Football Hall of Fame Luncheon Club. Our invocation today, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance, will be given by Sean Matejko, pastor at Whipple Avenue Baptist Church.
Thank you. Would you join me in a word of prayer, gentlemen and ladies? Our most gracious God and Father, Lord, we are so grateful to be able to gather this day as a club and as a fellowship that has a great love and passion for our sporting community. We thank you so much for the food that we have shared. We thank you for our membership and also the leadership of this organization. We especially thank you today for the amazing organizations who turn the gifts and the talents that you give to athletes and turn them into teams that compete for championships. We'd ask that you would bless Rocco today as he speaks to us, and we ask that we might be inspired by him. We ask these things in the name of Christ. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good story.
All right, again, I want to thank Rocco for, on short notice. I mean, we didn't find out until Thursday night, and we had to make a few calls, and Rocco stepped up, and I appreciate that. I really want to say thank you. Well, we have some special guests, and I want to introduce everyone. First of all, to my right, you just met Pastor Sean Matejko. Next to him is our past president, Jim Sterrett. We've got some folks scattered around here. I do want to mention some names because they're special people, especially to these folks up here. You'll meet Antonio here in a minute, but his mother here, Venus, is here with us today. Welcome. Also in the audience is Rocco's mom, Mary Susan. And here at the head table to my far left, Nick Hall, who is Antonio's son, who is a football player at Kentucky. And obviously the head football coach at Canton McKinley, Antonio Hall. And the best part of Rocco Maragas, his lovely wife, Brooke. Okay, I want to thank our sponsors. We do this every week, and we couldn't do it without you. We thank so much Aultcare Primetime Health Plan, Liberty Ford, Wilkshire Golf Course, the Marion Motley Memorial Fund Scholarship, and Dr. Peter Ferguson, Chiropractic. We are winding down our season, our 61st season, and next week, we have one more meeting here at noon, and then the following Monday, on May 20th, is our annual golf outing and our dinner. And we hope that you will join us for that. We've been selling tickets last week and this week. We'll sell them one more week before the dinner. Make sure if you're going to play in the golf outing, I think Bill told me we're up to 7 teams. That's right. We'd love to have more. We can get some more teams out there. That would be great. So that is on May 20th. Mention this every week, the Pro Football Hall of Fame residency program. Again, what a great program. You see these Pro Football Hall of Famers come into town for about 4 or 5 days, and they kind of go out in the community. We had Donnie Shell last week. This week, a guy you cannot miss, Willie Rofe, is here. And he'll be here this week. Big offensive lineman for the Saints and a great guy. Drove him during his Hall of Fame induction, and a great guy. So if you see Big Willie out there, he's a good guy, so say hello to him. I got called out for this last night on social media because I, as a fan, the Cavaliers, now, they stunk in the first half. I've already confessed to Rocco, and I've already confessed this, but I made a statement that they stunk, and but they came back and won, and what a great game. What a great performance in the second half for them. And so congratulations to the Cleveland Cavaliers. A big win, 106-94 over Orlando. Now they got to play Boston. Okay, that's going to be tough. All right, so they got to be ready for that. One last thing, obviously, the National High School second annual High School Hall of Fame class will be June 8th, and that class was named, and there's some of the names, I won't name them all, but Stump Mitchell is one of them. This is the High School Football Hall of Fame. Dick Butkus, Terrell Pryor, Nate Burleson, Charles Woodson, Bob Golick, Billy Sims, Robert Smith, Paul Warfield, and then there's a whole list of coaches and others. June 8th at Umstead Hall, and if you get a chance to go to that, it's going to be a great event. So a lot of those folks hopefully will be in town for that as well. All right, time to draw, so get your tickets out. We have our 50-50, and it is $215, and Ozzy will have the money.
So I can only make one person happy here all day.
That's fun. You'd like to be that. Oh, and before I forget, silence your cell phones, please. Just flip that little switch on the side. We're good? 775-142. $215, see Ozzy, right down here. All right. Enough for one playoff ticket. Okay, one final announcement. Our speaker next week is Archie Griffin, okay? The only two-time Heisman Trophy winner, a little bit about Archie, former running back at the Ohio State University, you all know that. He'll be doing a little bit different setup next week, okay? We're not gonna have the podium and Archie's not gonna stand here and give a speech. He called me a couple weeks ago and said, listen, I don't really like to stand up there and speak and just make a speech. So we're gonna do something different next week. We're gonna have a couple chairs up here, and I've got some questions that I'm preparing for Archie, and we're gonna just chat. He said, let's do a fireside chat, little, back and forth, and we'll ask him everything and anything we can, and he said we'll open it up afterwards to the floor. So a little bit different format next week, so I think you'll like that. Also want to remind everybody, Archie does have to get out of here. He said, I have to leave right at 1 o'clock, and he's asked that, no one to come up and take pictures and autographs and things like that, so please respect that and let him do his thing before and afterwards, if you will. Stay seated, and we'll have a couple folks going to get Archie out the door and into his car so he can go back to Columbus. So appreciate that if you would just cooperate with that as well. So that being said, it's now time to introduce the person that's going to introduce our speaker today. And great guy, Antonio Hall, serves as the head football coach of the Canton McKinley Bulldogs. A former Bulldog player himself, he went on to play at the University of Kentucky and then later on in the CFL. Here to introduce his good friend, please give a big Hall of Fame Luncheon Club welcome to Antonio Hall.
Thank you to everyone for that welcome. It's always a pleasure to be in this building to carry on my grandfather's legacy, Walt Hall. Today, I get to carry on that legacy and bring my son, Nick Hall, along with me, as my grandpa used to do when I was a kid. My brother, Rocco Maragas, Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of the Cleveland Charge, formerly the Canton Charge. Rocco joined the organization in 2014 and is in his 10th season. Rocco's career is attributed to his incredible work ethic, strong leadership skills, and competitive drive to meet goals and produce results. Among Rocco's many professional achievements, in 21 as Vice President of Business Operations, he was charged with moving the Charge's business operations from Canton to Cleveland, launching the Cleveland Charge. In prior roles of the Cavaliers organization, Rocco oversaw corporate partnerships with the Charge, Cavaliers, and the Cleveland Monsters. Rocco is a champion for equity and inclusion. He is a founding member of the Cavaliers' IDEAL team. IDEAL stands for Inclusion, Diversity, Education, Awareness, and Leadership. Rocco attended the University of Kentucky, go Big Blue, where he played quarterback on the football team and graduated with a dual degree in communications and marketing. Rocco and his wife, Brooke, have 2 beautiful sons, Lorenzo and Luca. That was Rocco the professional. Now let me tell you about Rocco the man, my friend, and my brother. We've been linked up since I was 13 and he was 11, and we haven't looked back. Over the last almost 30 years, we've went through every phase of life together. We've been there to celebrate the good times together, but more importantly, and most importantly, we've been there for each other through the bad. And that's a test of a true friend. His parents were major influences in my life. In fact, I might not be here without his parents. His mother, who will always have a special place in my heart, was a teacher of mine and saw I had potential as a player and a person. She would mentor me in school because she saw I had a tough time fitting in. Ms. Maragas, will you please stand up? She got an idea to ask her husband to take me to the University of Pittsburgh football game when he took Rocco and his teammates, his Little League team, to a college football game. Once I got there, I realized that college football was in my future, and I never looked back. That was the day that me and Rocco became friends and soon became brothers. I was at their house all the time. We went on trips, worked out together outside of school. We played football together at McKinley, and soon he joined me at the University of Kentucky after my sophomore year. When the University of Kentucky and the city of Lexington met Rocco, they realized they never met anyone quite like him. And would probably wouldn't meet anyone like him after. Soon everyone on campus and everyone in town knew who Rocco was, and to know Rocco is to love him. His personality is as big as his heart. He's the most genuine person I know, and he leads with love. He speaks his mind and can be stubborn at times, which is an endearing quality he gets from his father, Frank. Rest in peace, Frank. But that combination of genuineness, love, stubbornness, and confidence are what make him special. As my brother, he makes me proud all the time, none more so than seeing him being a wonderful dad to his 2 beautiful sons, Lorenzo and Luca. He's a natural at being a dad because he had one of the best. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to introduce my brother, Rocco Maragas.
I don't need the mic nearly as high as he does. That's gonna be pretty difficult to follow. And I know that I'm here to talk about the Cleveland Charge and the Cavaliers and a little bit about myself, but it's an honor to be introduced by a man like that. That was incredible, and truly, he calls me his brother. It's reciprocal. It's fantastic. They like to say that blood's thicker than water, and it's true. And one of the things that I've always felt was also true is that mud is a little bit thicker than blood. And he and I have been through some crazy, difficult, unique situations that we've helped each other through, and that was an amazing introduction. Thank you, Antonio. Thank you. Now I know that you all have heard from some members of our organization before, and I'm grateful to be one of them. A little bit of background on me is I'm actually from Canton, still live here. And in case you're wondering, there's probably all kinds of places on that bar back there and around these walls that I ran into them or tied somebody's shoes together when I was a little kid, or I was here for the McKinley-Masson breakfasts before we went west. I mean, it was, I was living inside these walls for a long, long time. And I'm proud to be from Canton, Ohio. I know this group of people here is very proud to be from Stark County, and to be a member of the folks that get to speak at this luncheon club, it really does mean the world to me. So I can't thank you all enough for having me up here. Frank and RJ and everybody that's been very welcoming. It was a surprise to get that call. I was hoping to have an opportunity next season, he had said, and to be able to have this opportunity today is only a blessing. And I gotta say, if I'm a little bit hoarse, I had a party yesterday with 19,432 of my best friends. So. You might have seen it. It was a fun one. We sent some folks and blew home. But it was, the organization, the Cleveland Cavaliers organization that embraced me 10 years ago is a product of all the things that I learned and that were instilled in me here in Stark County. And that's one of the things that I'm really proud of, is that all the accomplishments and professional achievements, and even the things that Antonio mentioned that me as a person I attribute to Stark County. The fact that things here are, I like to say, beautifully difficult at times. It takes some guts to make it in and around and to be from Stark County. There's a certain, call it moxie, that you get when you live here, when you're from here. And it develops a thicker skin than maybe some other places around the country. And it's one of the things that I'm proud of. And he's right. I'm stubborn as hell sometimes, and that's okay. But good, bad, or indifferent, you'll get the honest truth out of me. Whether you're a colleague, a friend, somebody that comes up to me on the street, and that's one of the things that my father, who used to bring me here and took me to every sporting event around Stark County, that's one of the biggest and best qualities I got from him. In the world of sports, in the world of business, a lot of things are pretty identical, and a lot of folks don't know that, but on the back end of every sports team, there's a team behind the team. A set of folks that are doing everything that every business that all of you are associated with actually were doing. Whether that's accounting or marketing or simply operations, and a number of different things that are happening behind the scenes to make sure that everything goes off without a hitch. To make sure that all 20,000 people last night walk in, have fun, and walk out, regardless of what happens on the court, the field, the ice. And it's a special thing to be a part of. It's one of the things that I found incredible joy out of. Being a former athlete and having a competitive drive, a competitive spirit, and really understanding that only lasts for so long. You only get that, and then all of a sudden it's taken away. When I was lucky enough to play college football with Antonio, I wouldn't have been there without him, but when that's all taken away, you gotta find a way to let that out and get that aggressive and that competitiveness out of you as an athlete. And the world of sports business has given that opportunity to me, and I think it gives the opportunity to a lot of folks around the place. I give a lot of credit to his son, Nick. The University of Kentucky actually just launched a sports business program. And his first few words to me today were, we have this new major that I'm thinking about switching to. Could you help me out? And Antonio, of course, told him, there's no doubt. There's 100% yes on my part. That's something that, again, being from here, and my father, like Antonio mentioned, his grandfather, I know what RJ does and what a lot of people around this room, giving kids the opportunity to experience things in a way that they can become great through sport. And I know that's why we're all here, is the purpose of sport. During your great invocation, you mentioned the opportunity to have people that play games, and they get to have fun for a living and play a game, but we all get to enjoy it and live in it. We breathe it, we bleed it sometimes. It's in us, but nothing else can do that except for sports. There's very few things that can unite everybody like sports. A quick story that I'll tell you that can prove that I know everybody here was really proud of. And I see a lot of wine and gold in the crowd, so I'm excited to see that. But in 2016, when the Cavs did bring a title here, the streets of Cleveland, the streets of Akron, the streets of Canton, everywhere you went, everybody had a smile on their face, and everybody gave everybody a high five. You were wearing wine and gold, you got a high five from somebody else walking by wearing wine and gold. And it didn't matter where you were from, what you looked like, what your job was, how much you made, and sports is the only thing in the world that does that. The only thing in our world, at least. And that's amazing. It really is the thing that unites everybody in a certain area. And on the business side of it, when you're talking with whether it be clients or you're trying to do something that really is meaningful in the community, that loyalty and that united front that happens naturally, it's not forced, It's the magic of sports. I guess I shouldn't use the word magic after yesterday, but they're not. But it really is. It's an amazing thing when you feel it. And you go out in the community and you help kids do something, or go do a service to, whether it's a community, a school, whatever it may be. If you're here talking to a group of people that are well informed, and believe me, I know that I got to leave time because you're going to drill me with some questions I'm probably not supposed to answer. It's the fun part about sports. And that's what the business side of it has given me true joy and lets me really be a competitor again without being on the court. Well, I was never really good on the court, but without throwing a football like I used to, at least. The Charge, and I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with the G League, the Cleveland Charge, what used to be the Canton Charge. I know that we've had some people speak to you. I'll give you a brief background. The G League is the feeder system and the minor league system of the NBA. And for those of you who aren't familiar, but might be more familiar with minor league baseball, there's AA, AAA, and then the majors. The G League is somewhere between AAA and the majors. There's so much motion and movement between the G League players and the NBA players that it's deemed the second most competitive basketball league in the world and arguably the most successful minor league system in the world. European soccer has a unique system that rivals it, but almost 60% of all the NBA players, and actually more than half of the Cavs roster, play in the G League. So when you talk about quality of talent and the actual on-the-court piece, the legitimacy of the game, it's second to none. It's fantastic. And speaking of the Charge itself, we're really, really proud to be aligned with the Cavaliers. Aside from the association with the Cavaliers and the history in Northeast Ohio, and Dan Gilbert as a chairman and the way that he's operated our business, we have experiences with people like Sam Merrill and Dean Wade, who have been able to go up and play with the Cavs this season and not just make an impact. I mean, that game against the Celtics earlier in the year, when Dean Wade put the team on his shoulders and won the game, that's one that anybody in that building is going to remember for a long time. That's one that we'll never forget. I actually saw Frank that night. Hopefully you didn't give up on us that night either. I didn't plan on saying any of that, but my wife will say, I'm forever the optimist. Maybe that's the quarterback in me, that I can see that there's always an opportunity to win, even if it's just the slightest bit. But don't give up on us until it's zeros. He knows I love him, though. He has the same name as my father, which is Frank, so he's always got a spot in my heart. But the thing about the Charge and the Cavaliers is that it is so tied in together. They practice on the same floor up at Cleveland Clinic Courts, and a lot of people don't realize that one team's coming off the floor and the other team's coming on. So during the middle of the year, actually early in the season, when Jared Allen was injured, he was practicing with the Charge every day. Middle of the season, when Donovan Mitchell's coming back, trying to come back, he's practicing with the Charge regularly. Excuse me. I'm not joking. There's too much Canton in me to stay quiet at a Game 7 yesterday just because I was going to be speaking. I was as loud as I could be. Everyone was screaming. But the things about the team aligning with the Cavaliers are really incredible. It really is. There's opportunities where the Charge will play a game and the Cavs are playing the day before or the day after, and all of a sudden, at a Wednesday night game for the G League, in walks Darius Garland and Bickerstaff's staff, and you got Isaac Okoro and Dean Wade. I mean, Donovan Mitchell would come to a bunch of games. Sam Merrill's always out there cheering on his guys. Craig Porter Jr., these guys are all coming, sitting down. One of the most important things is to make sure at least half of them have a thing of popcorn. That's like the #1 request. But they really are just fans like you and I. They want to go to a game, enjoy it, and with the Charge, unlike the Cavs, you can get so close to the action. The G League itself, one of the things that we're most proud of is the access. And that's access in a lot of ways. So you have access to players and autographs and pictures. You have access to get close to the court. Because in the NBA, you can't sit on the floor for less than a couple $1,000s anywhere. Even if the team doesn't make the playoffs like we have the last couple years. The G League, you can sit on the floor for a fraction of the cost and just enjoy it. You're right there with either your son or your daughter or a business colleague, and it really is access in a lot of different ways. Even for families and groups of students and schools, you get access to go to a game for such an economical opportunity to go see a great experience. And that's just for what's on the floor. Our basketball operations people, as much as I love them, the folks at the Cleveland Clinic Courts, they're great. The GM, Mike Gansey, who used to be the Charge GM, that's part of the Cavaliers organization, is the GM for the Cavs now. And even Kobe Altman, who comes to Charge games, they all laugh every time I say it, but to us on the business side, we're not really concerned if we win or lose. If we win, it's gravy. But for us, it's just about making sure people have a good time. We want to make sure that fans, like all of you, anybody that has an opportunity to come in and wants to experience a game, that we don't just give them what's on the floor. You have an experience when you walk in that you will not forget. Something that is better than just going out to eat or going to a movie. And no offense to any restaurants or any movies or anything else that people like to do in their spare time, but we want to give families and people the opportunity that when they go home and they wake up the next morning, they're sitting around breakfast table or they're going into work, they can't help but be excited. And that picture that they took of their son or their niece or their grandson or their nephew, getting an autograph, that lives for a year, for 2 years, for 5 years. Or the kid grows up and all of a sudden he's going off to school and one of his best memories is when somebody took him to a basketball game when they were a kid. That's the game changer. When somebody can't go to a game and a group of people call us and they say, hey, here's X amount of money, buy as many tickets as you can, make sure the kids that can't normally go can get to a game. And we go out, last year, we got over 9,000 tickets in the community to make sure that kids that couldn't go to a basketball or a sporting event came to a Charge game this past season. The year before that, it was only 7,000. And our goal is to be well over 12 and 15,000 here in the coming years. Those are the things that when you touch lives and you see smiles on people's faces, those are the things on the business side, those are our championships. And so, as much as I love to see a win, and I do, I really love seeing a win, seeing a smile on someone's face when they're really enjoying themselves, when they can forget about what the heck's bothering them, or whatever else might be going on, and they just enjoy themselves, that truly is an amazing thing. And I know all of you have probably experienced that. The amount of football games, whether it's a high school game, college game, pro game, Hall of Fame game, I know all of you have taken somebody to a game and sat there and seen their smile on their face and been like, damn, that was the right thing to do. We had a blast today. It could have lost. And believe me, if you went to a Browns game, which I love, more often than not in the last few years they have. I'm glad they've started making the playoffs too. Like, it's a lot of fun that we have competitive teams around here. But it's an experience that really is untouchable, that makes working in sports a wonderful, truly wonderful thing. Something that I gotta say is incredibly humbling is when you get to have an opportunity like this, or even an opportunity like yesterday while the team's in the playoffs. And I've been with the organization for 10 years, and I've been able to see some pretty unique and unbelievable things. My very first year in the organization, I actually was interviewing shortly after the Cavs had a pretty rough year. And when a position became available, and I committed to it, it was about a month before one of our favorite sons from Akron decided to come back home. So my first year in 14-15 was really an incredible season. And when you talk about going to a game and seeing some wild stuff, we had an opportunity to go out to Golden State and go see a game out there. And the fans, the people here in Northeast Ohio, when you hear teams talk about how special they are, it truly is the truth. It's unbelievable. You go out, whether it's a Golden State Warriors game, you go to other football stadiums or other baseball stadiums, the fans in Northeast Ohio, the fact that people care so much that you might get furious, you might get mad at what's going on, but that only means you actually care. And it's different than when you live beachside and there's 80 things to do. It's different than when you live in Hollywood and there's all these other things that you can do. Northeast Ohio is a special place, and on the sports side of that, being able to talk to a group of people here that I know are well-informed, are fans, are a part of it, being able to see it in person, like it's something that it truly is, takes your breath away at times. You know, knowing how passionate people are, and when you hear the press conferences after Game 6, Donovan Mitchell lost this past, right? So he had 50 points, we lost. He could have said a lot of things, and what came out of his mouth? I can't wait till we get back home. I can't wait to play in Cleveland. I saw Cleveland during those playoff runs before and wasn't a part of it. I can't wait to hear and see Cleveland for Game 7. You have an opportunity that when you get around Northeast Ohio sports and you're part of it, it gets inside of you. It becomes a part of you. And that's a feeling that I know all of you have, whether you're a fan of the Bulldogs or a fan of the Tigers, whether you're a fan of this school or that school. I know that that's a feeling that everybody can relate to, and it gets inside of you, and it fires you up. It makes you so pumped to walk in. I call my wife, especially when we started the playoffs, just walking in the building and knowing that the playoffs are starting, the t-shirts are on the seats, it gives you chills. It's nuts. And they might do some of those things in other places. It doesn't feel the same. And I'm biased because I'm from here. I live literally 7 minutes down the street. But when you've seen other places and you go other towns, other cities, they might get excited or they might think that they have something special, but it's only when the times are good. When we're sitting here, whether we're in the playoffs or we have 30 wins on the Cavs, the place is packed. I know that McKinley-Massillon game, whether both teams are ranked nationally or both are struggling, that stadium's packed. Like, there's a certain piece that when you're from here and it's inside of you, that starts to permeate and the people around you feel it. I work with a lot of folks, they'll ask, how do you wake up with so much energy? How are you so excited? I'm like, I woke up and look at what we get to do today. We're out here trying to promote the playoffs. That's an amazing thing that you get up in the morning, put your feet on the ground, like, okay, let's go out, let's have a great day. Let's find a way to really enjoy ourselves and let's have a good time. I mean, there's so much excitement around Northeast Ohio sports that it really is an untouchable thing. Now, I know that Frank told me that there's some certain pieces and aspects that you all love to hear. And a lot of times it's stories, and I've tried to stay away from some of them. But there's a few that I'd be very remiss if I didn't mention. And there's been so many things in the world of sports that have meant so much to me in my life that have gotten me to this point. And I gotta say that when talking to kids and students, one of the things that I found out how important things really are is when the first time I walked into a school and I was a member of the Charge organization. It was actually here in Canton. And the kids at the time, they didn't care that I was just somebody on the business side. It didn't matter what my name was. It just mattered that I got to work with really tall people, taller than both of these two. And they asked questions. What's it like to be around tall people? What's it like when people can jump so high? How big is a basketball court? And these kids, it's amazing. It really was amazing. And that was, I want to say, 3 or 4 weeks on the job. I started right before a season had started. And it changed my perspective of really going into it as thinking the business is important. This is what we have to do. We have to drive revenues and all the things that all of you have had to deal with in the world of business and in your lives. And it changes the perspective of saying, hey, we have a lot that really means so much. These kids, they look up to the fact that we're just out here trying to do some fun. And it didn't matter to them. All of a sudden you see your impact and what you can do as you go through things and as life can change. And Antonio mentioned, he's proud of me that I get to be a father. I'm incredibly proud to be a father, but it gave me those opportunities. Now, granted, I didn't have kids until just 7 years ago, so I got to have a few years of experience in these things before I had my own sons. And seeing how kids react prepared me to be able to look at my own sons and have some of those experiences. So going through talking with kids and working with them and seeing the excitement to the opportunity, my very, was that 16, 17, the year after we won the title, my son had just been born after we won a championship. She had a lot of credit. She was actually pregnant through that whole playoff run, and she was a trooper. Unbelievable. No joke, we had to tell the paramedics would come up to me before the game, like, where's your seat location? We know that she's 9 months pregnant. We want to make sure you're okay. But that next year, my sons were raised going to Charge games, wearing the headphones to see kids on, And it got to the point where if I could put my son on a screen now from last night, he's jumping, 7 years old, jumping on the seat, flexing, going wild for the Jumbotron. Seeing the excitement out of it, it was just truly natural. And I got to say that as the fan in me, just like all of us, seeing when the game gets a little bit difficult or gets a little hard, you get a little bit, I think we just need to pull it together. Let's see if we can figure out a way to get this thing going. But in kids, it's amazing. And being able to touch kids' lives, touch kids' hearts, it really is incredible. One of the most fun moments this past season was we were getting ready for a game in the atrium at Rocco Maragas Fieldhouse. I'm not sure how many people have been there, but they actually carved out an area of space where there's displays of Cavs jerseys, there's the Larry O'Brien trophy, and it's the whole floor. The Cavaliers championship floor is up on the wall. And I see a familiar face, and they're staring at the Larry O'Brien trophy, and sure enough, it's RJ and his son. And RJ turns around and says hi. His son is just locked in. I mean, he's on the trophy, the big smile. He turns around, the smile is just ear to ear. And it didn't matter. Like, there was Campy Russell and the group were doing TV right next door. It didn't matter the TV camera was over there. The Larry O'Brien trophy's right there. And seeing his son just go nuts and anybody else that goes wild, like that is, it really is so fun and so special. The Cavaliers and the Charge have given me personally an opportunity to do a lot of very special things. And a lot of that's attributed to some of the things that Antonio mentioned that were in my bio and some things that Frank mentioned. I mentioned the opportunity to do community work and work with kids quite a bit. And I may not have mentioned a lot about the business because I truly enjoy the business side. It's fun, it gives me the opportunity to do those things. But having an impact on somebody's life and having a platform to do it is what has been the most gratifying part of it. Growing up in Canton, being from the area, understanding the work ethic that goes into people that are raised here and how we all feel and appreciate something that's truly earned, it really is a special piece. It's something that has been the world to me, and I want to make sure that I truly express that. My mother, who's here, Venus, who's here, Antonio's mother, they helped raise me according to this situation where you're never going to get another chance at this. So if you're going to take the time to do something, no matter what it is, whether it's walking into work each morning, whether it's practice when I was a kid, to always make sure that you do it your best, to make sure that you try your absolute hardest. If there's something that you can give effort behind, make sure you give your absolute best. And the old adage of work smarter, not harder, kind of always bothered me because it always made me think, athlete background, of like, well, we have a game plan, but if we don't work our butts off in practice each week, that game plan's not going to work. And if we just drive our heads against the wall and work as hard as we can without a good game plan, well, all that effort's going to be for naught. So combining those things and really making sure that you're preparing and getting ready into game plan, or you forecast in business, and then you put all the right practices behind it, you put all the right effort behind it. Those are the pieces and parts that make success, whether you're in sports on the field, sports off the field, in the world of business, community management, if you're in the media. A lot of the preparation and a lot of the things that you do that lead you to wherever you're at are going to ultimately put you in a place. So they always say, be ready so you don't have to get ready. I like to thank my mother, who was a teacher, to make sure that I was always prepared to do whatever the task at hand was. And seeing her work with children is one of the reasons why it's been so gratifying for me to be able to work in sports and help out as many people as I have. It's been a really, really great opportunity. I want to make sure that, I think we have plenty of time. Yeah, we have plenty of time. I wanted to make sure I open up a lot of questions. And I had a feeling I was going to get asked a lot of basketball questions. I'm just throwing that out there. So I didn't talk much about basketball, but I definitely want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to ask any questions they have about me, the organization, or anything of the like. Go ahead.
You mentioned lot about how much joy and satisfaction working with young kids gives you. So, regardless of sport, who were some of your idols?
It's a great question. He asked me that I've talked a lot about some of the things that brought me joy and satisfaction and who were some of my idols as I was growing up. I can say that on the field, the person I thought was the best football player of all time was Barry Sanders. I grew up loving the Detroit Lions. The funny thing about it, though, is that I also grew up going to Fawcett Stadium and the Fieldhouse every weekend of my life, basically. It felt like I lived on the old hill at Fawcett, going up and down, and I'm sure that my sweatpants had holes that my mother had to try and figure out something to do with to prove it. But my heroes growing up, as wild as it was, were a lot of the people wearing red and black. Like even Antonio, I'll never forget, I was still in middle school while he was a Bulldog, and I'd be able to walk by the sideline, because they used to have the low fences at Old Fawcett on the home side, and I could walk by and I'd yell over to Antonio, and if he looked over and he saw me, he always said hello, or he'd come over and give me a high five. It meant the world to me. A name that a lot of you remember that was like a hero to me was Che Bryant, who, McKinley, great Ohio State football player. I'll never forget, he was a student of my mother's as well, that always made the time to say hello and literally pick me up at the time and give me a hug. I mean, it was incredible, and those were my experiences, because those were the feelings that. I'm sorry? Oh, sorry. That's just repeat. Yeah. So locally, most of my heroes were very, very localized. I mentioned Barry Sanders first because I was lucky enough that an uncle of mine was the strength coach of the Detroit Lions, and that's how I got to actually see and meet Barry. So aside from him just scoring touchdowns and then handing the ball and to the ref and going back to the sideline, I got to see a little bit of a different side of him when I was a little kid, and that afforded me the opportunity to see a bunch of games and a bunch of players. And I know Chris Spielman, who's a Stark County guy and who was originally, I think, scheduled for speaking, he was on those Lions teams, and he was the same way. We'd go to different events, and it didn't matter that he was, this all-world football player or anything like that. I was always told that he was a guy from right down the street from us. And so to me, that meant the world to me. And he always, every time we were doing something, he always said hello. Same thing, pick me up, say hi, give me a hug. So those were some of the people that really meant the world to me. Most of them, though, wore red and black just down the street. Yes?
I just have to say, it is such a blessing to have you here. Your wife, Brooke, is the sweetest.
I agree.
And Antonio Hall, my grandson goes to the early college at Lehman, and he's in Washington right now. It's just awesome. How you guys are brothers. And your mom was amazing. I really enjoyed meeting her. And also, I just think that I'm glad that Bobby Huckins wasn't here. I'm against him, but I really enjoyed it. So thank you for coming.
No, I appreciate it. I really do. And you're right. She is amazing. Antonio's great too, but she's. Yes.
What's the average player make in the G League? And then how does that contract work? Does the Cavs kind of have first dibs on those players?
That's a great question.
So how long are the contracts?
Okay, so he asked, how much do players in the G League make? How do the contracts work? And about how long are the contracts? And the easiest part of that is how long are the contracts. The G League specific contracts are only 1 year in length. And the unique part about the G League is that there's two different types of players. So there are G League players, which are assigned to a G League contract, and then there's two-way players. A two-way player, there's 3 of them on each NBA team. Every NBA team has 3 two-way players, and they're actually signed to contracts with the team. So with the Cavs, right now we have Pete Nance, Larry's son. We have Isaiah Mobley, who's Evan's older brother, Evan Mobley's older brother. And then we also have Amani Bates, who was the Cavaliers' second-round pick this past year. Those are our 3 two-way players, and they're signed to Cavaliers contracts. You'll see them on the sidelines of games. They're practice working. And so they're actually Cavaliers contracted players, and those two-way players will make anywhere from $300 to, I think it's up to $550,000 a year as two-way players, and they play mostly in the G League. And so those guys, you could have came up to Cleveland and seen them play with the Charge almost exclusively all season. The traditional G League players, that's actually a different story. They make around $50,000 a year just in G League contracts. But then there's also, most of those guys, they're participating in NBA summer camps, or they play in the NBA Summer League, or they'll go to NBA training camps. So their annual earnings from basketball are significantly more, but G League alone, it's just under 50. And the contracts, I saved those for the end because they're actually the most unique piece about it. Because you asked also, do the Cavs get first dibs on players? And that was the last part of the question. The way the G League works is that the G League players are actually signed to a G League contract with the NBA. And what that does, which is unique compared to any other sport, is it gives every NBA team the ability to sign any G League player at any point. So rather than, like with baseball, if the shortstop for the Guardians doesn't get hurt, the shortstop for the Columbus Clippers isn't going anywhere, and neither is the shortstop for the Akron Rubber Ducks. But in the G League, if a team needs to fill a void, they can pull any player at any point, and that gives the players so much more optionality that they can now have 30 different teams that could ask them to come up for an NBA contract and make their dreams come true.
But not the two-way players.
The two-way players are exclusively for those parent clubs, yes. Yes?
What impact has the NIL money been on the G League, or can guys make more money in college than they can make in the G League?
So the question was, what impact does NIL money have on the G League? And it actually was a pretty substantial impact. And you can go back to a few years ago. The G League and the NBA was groundbreaking in that they established a team. This is before NIL was approved. They established a team called G League Ignite. And what it was a designated team for high school players that were good enough to be one and done, the old adage of one and done. But it wasn't set up the way it used to be. You had to be selected so that kids couldn't just essentially ruin their amateur status. And this G League Ignite team would actually have, I think the first year they had 5 guys that were straight out of high school and played for them, and they made a couple $100,000. They made a few hundred, I think it was around $400,000 were the best players, and then that was just in contract money. And then they also could have made more in sponsorships, endorsements, but they were also structured with collegiate classes from the University of Stanford. And so it was a really great structure to help kids coming out of high school compared to when they would just come straight out and go into the NBA and sort of be thrown to the wolves. And when the G League did that, that started to help ignite the back end of it. So all of a sudden now you see, fast forward a couple years, the NIL money and the impact on college athletics. And can people make more money in NIL than they can in the G League? That's a question that's just determined by the school and the situation. But the impact of it is that now G League Ignite, the NBA has decided to withdraw G League Ignite. Because the purpose was to make sure that these kids in high school were able to be set up, take care of themselves, be educated, and now in the collegiate world, they're able to do that and still also earn money based on their name, image, and likeness. And so the G League, I like to think, helped foster in the ability for players to be able to utilize an opportunity that had been prevented for so many years prior to them. Absolutely. Yes?
Is there any chance that the Charge will come back to Canton?
If anybody saw his shirt, I had a feeling he was going to ask that question. So if you didn't hear him, he asked if there's any chance that the Charge would come back to Canton. So I'm one to never say never. You know, I got to say that our time in Cleveland has been incredible, and I mentioned some things. You know, the alignment with basketball, with us being able to practice under the same roof and in the same building as the Cavs, the players, and the ability that, like a guy like Sam Merrill actually last season when the Cavs signed him to his 10-day contract before they signed him this season to the full contract, he actually played in a Charge game. I think he put up like 36 or 37 points, something like that. And then took a shower, had an escort to go 7 blocks down the street, and played in the Cavs game that night towards the end of the season. And so I'm one to never say never. You know, personally and on the business side, it doesn't make sense to be in the same market as your parent club. I didn't get into this, but the NBA has actually come to us and they want to use us as a model in Cleveland because of how well we've been able to do business-wise in the same market as our parent team. We're actually the only club. I mentioned that we're 7th and 9th in attendance. We actually were top 10 in our business metrics. And as far as in-market teams, so in the same market as your parent team, we're the #1 team in the G League on the business side. And there's a certain set of business metrics that we had never been able to hit before. We hit amazing records this year, and so I'm very proud and excited about what we were able to accomplish. I don't think basketball will ever let us move because it does make a lot of sense on the business side for us to be elsewhere, but it's been so wonderful to be closer on the basketball side that we picked up the pieces and were able to find a way to make that puzzle work and really glue it together the right way. Never say never, but it is working for now, and it's still close enough. Yeah, I'll be the first one to say that our 24-25 G League season, consider everyone here and a friend or two coming up to a game on me. It's on the house, that's for sure. The whole club. Yes?
Will Jared Allen be available for Boston?
It's a great question. Will Jared Allen be available for Boston? I honestly don't know. I wish I did know. I'm not a member of our medical team. They're great to work with. I know that our medical staff is phenomenal, second to none, and the different things that are available for him to get healthier are at his fingertips, that's for sure. But we're hopeful. We'll see what happens. I wish I had an answer for you. Yes?
How would you describe Dan Gilbert as the leader of the organization, given the fact that he has so many other business interests, specifically what's going on in Detroit and all of the real estate that he's getting involved in? And does he have much influence and impact and interaction with you guys at the G League level?
It's a great question. So he asked, how is Dan Gilbert as a chairman and an operator, and if there's any concern with all of his interests in Detroit, as well as does he have much association or interaction with our G League side? Is that pretty correct? So Dan, first off, is amazing. I will absolutely say that, and it comes from the heart. For him to do what he's done for our organization and for the people of our organization, the things that will never make headlines, will never make it into the press, that most likely people won't know. And there's some things that I don't feel comfortable sharing, just knowing that he is an amazing human. All of his business sense and business acumen are phenomenal. You can't get to a point where he's at without being phenomenal in a lot of different ways of life. But the best part about Dan is the person that he is. It's amazing. And I gotta say, what he's done for myself, my family, especially over the course of having children and raising a family and working for one of his companies, it's incredible. He does have ownership or a stake of ownership in a number of different companies, several. And his involvement in them is less now than it was prior, but he's still very much involved. And his fingerprints, his blueprint, his DNA is still intertwined and woven into everything that we do. There's a book that I'd be more than happy to at least provide a couple folks with, so you at least get an idea of what I'm talking about. There's a book called The Isms, and it's a set of basic principles that all the companies actually live by and operate according to. And it's relatively simple things that make sense, but just sometimes they get lost on some folks elsewhere. And for us, I'm really proud that we never do. My favorite one is do the right thing. It's actually written down, it's in ink. There's a set of principles, like I said, it's called the Isms, and all of the businesses are operated according to the Isms. And it makes you really happy as a team member that you're working for a company and a collection of companies. For us, it's called our family of companies, and the sports and entertainment arm is called Rock Entertainment Group. you know that you're always working for a good quality company, which is an important piece of it. But also, if you go to Rocco Maragas Fieldhouse, if you come to a Charge game, if you go up to the Rocco Maragas Classic in Detroit, if you go to any of the buildings or businesses that Dan operates or owns, there's a very constant and very prevalent constant throughout all of those. And the things are always done at a high level. One of the things that's a lot of fun about working for the Cavaliers organization is because it is one of Dan Gilbert's family of companies, because we always do the right thing. And I don't just mean some of the things I said earlier about doing the community. If you're gonna do something, you do it at a high level. So if we're gonna renovate a building, we didn't just renovate it, we transformed it, the Q, and turned it into Rocco Maragas Fieldhouse. Like, when you see something that we touch, whether it's refurbishing a court in Cleveland or some of the work that the company's done down in Brazil with Anderson Varejao and his club that he used to work with, or even if it's just going to a game and the fan experience, everything working for a Dan Gilbert company, there's an expectation of always doing whatever you can at a very high level. And that is one of the things that makes me really proud about it and makes the experience worthwhile. And oh, by the way, when we won that title, he met with every single employee and thanked them, handed us the championship ring himself, took a picture with the Larry O'Brien trophy, made time for thousands of people to be able to do that. And that man, with what he does in a 24-hour time span, doesn't feel fair compared to what the rest of us have to do in 24 hours. Incredible human, amazing human. Yes?
Has the attendance for the Charge been comparable with Canton versus Cleveland?
The question was, has the attendance for the Charge been comparable in Canton compared to in Cleveland? Actually, in Cleveland, we've been able to increase our attendance significantly. This past year, we had 3 games that had over 5,500 people at them. And I believe we had 6 technical sellouts. Because in the building that we play in Cleveland is a pretty large building, so we try to condense it down to around 4,500 seats. But we went above 4,500 over 6 times this year, and we actually averaged 3,383 fans a game this season, which was also an all-time record for the Charge.
Is there a chance of signing Donovan Mitchell for a long-term contract?
That's a great question. The question was, is there a chance of signing Donovan Mitchell to a long-term contract? And I was here in January when our CEO, Nick Bartlett, spoke. And I know that a similar question came from that side of the room. So I'm not saying it was you, but I'm not saying it was you. It's me to pay for it. The opportunity to sign Donovan is one that I know Nick was very forward about, we're very open about. We want Donovan to be a member of our organization. And we really are going to do everything we can in our power to make that happen. I know that Nick mentioned some of the financial specifics. I'm not even going to touch that. Nick that was here speaking he's significantly closer to some of those things than I am, but I will say that something that I learned a long time ago and that I know a lot of people believe in, and this is true for a contract situation or any time that you're trying to truly help things go your way, is that you can never force anybody to say yes in any dispute or anything like that. But you can make it really, really hard for someone to say no. And that's what we're going to do. Between the culture of our organization, the city of Cleveland, the fan backing, and we're going to put the best financial package out that we possibly can for them. So we're going to make it really difficult for anybody to say no, that's for sure. Absolutely. One more. One more question.
Straight back.
Oh, straight back. Excuse me. Yes.
Has Dan Gilbert ever thought about buying the Cleveland Guardians?
The question was, has Dan Gilbert ever thought about buying the Cleveland Guardians? I'm not in Dan's head, but I wish I was, because there's probably some really good ideas floating around in there. I honestly don't know. I think that there's some restrictions there, and quite frankly, the Guardians are great neighbors. We're really excited that they're ushering in, over the course of a few years, they're ushering in a new ownership. But the Guardians are wonderful neighbors. I got to say, we're fans. We like to take our family there, and they're doing a great job. That's for sure. I have no idea. It's a great question, though. Thank you all very much.